Hey, welcome back to another episode. I want to talk today about communication and why it is so imperative that we have good quality communication. There was a time in my life where I didn't have good quality communication, and it directly hindered every relationship, every job, everything in my day to day, including my mindset. And so, I think it's just so important. It's a good topic, and I think that it's just not talked about enough, in my opinion. I haven't seen enough about it, at least. And so for me, going back, poor communication started within my environment. And it was because certain people in my life would give me a voice and they would allow me that platform to speak my truth and be my independent self, even as a young child. But other people would not. Um, my mom was she still is to this day, she's 81, and she's very outspoken. She's always been loud and outspoken and that say it as it is and tell me how you really feel kind of person. And she's not afraid to stand up for herself and others. And so I learned a lot of my communication from her. When I was younger, they used to say that I looked like my dad, but sounded and talked like my mom, acted like my mom. And it's funny to look back now because she actually just mentioned that at my niece's wedding this last weekend. She mentioned that they always said, and it's true. These days I look a little bit more like both of them, but as a little kid, most definitely. Good coffee. So, part of communication is really having crystal clear goals. Like, what are you trying to achieve in this conversation? And I know that sounds so crazy because we think more of goals as like achieving them or something that we strive to do long term, right? Like it's something like goal oriented is more so like toward a career or a money value or a specific item, right? You can do goal setting anywhere in your any area of your life, and communication is huge. So if you're setting goals for better communication, you're actually going to, it's going to help level you up in a way where you're going to be more consistent at attempting the better communication. So crystal clear goals for communication can look like I want to have 5 conversations each day, and I want to communicate what I want in each conversation assertively, effectively, and clearly. And you may have, specific things that you have to talk about with each of those people. It may be the same, similar conversations, right? Maybe it's work related and you're looking for potential clients. Then you're gonna want to take some notes. You're gonna want to put some notes somewhere. I always love little sticky notes, because then I can just bullet point what I want to communicate effectively. Like, and then I can give myself little tips along the way as I'm having that conversation. And so communication is important, but so is the follow through. Okay. The follow through of the communication. That means the prep work, setting up some notes for yourself. So, guidelines, notes of guidelines. So you're guided through the conversation so you don't miss something. Um, the other thing is your mindset. What is your state of mind as you're going to have these conversations? It's so important to pay attention to your state of mind and your mindset. And is it healthy or positive? Have you fueled it with the right, personal development and things so that you're prepared, um, in case somebody, responds negatively or in case they don't understand? Um, just it's so important to have a positive, healthy mindset before you go into any conversations. And so prime your brain, do the work, do a 5 minute meditation, clear your mind for 5 minutes, clear all your thoughts and quiet your monkey mind. And the noise going on around inside your mind when you quiet your head and just center yourself. And I know that can be really hard for some people. Um, there are a few awesome meditations that you can find online, and so definitely, explore those. If you have questions or want a good one, just message me. Just comment on my stuff, and I'll reach out. But um, one of the things with communication that I've learned is poor communication can lead you down some disastrous, windy roads. Um, for a long time, I went through some trauma with my body and my brain injury. And it was after my son was born in 2013, it seemed to trigger with the injury to my spinal cord from that delivery. It seemed to trigger everything for me. And so I started having really hard communication skills. They started getting really difficult for me because my memory was getting messed up, and it was starting to just all kind of discombobble together. And it was such a stressful time in my life. I'm not going to lie. And so what changed? I lived with those really poor communication skills until about 2017. And my granddaughter was diagnosed with cancer. And I realized that I needed to be a better communicator if I was going to be helping my daughter with communication and giving people information, family and friends, updates on her prognosis. Um, and so I really started trying harder then. And then that's when I realized that I was kind of hindered and what was going on with my brain. And then I was like, okay, so I fix this? Um, the more I did repetition, the better my communication got. So I know that sounds really silly, right? Some people are going to be like, what do you mean? What I mean by that is the more I practiced, the better I got. Just like as a kid in school, when they tell us that practice makes you perfect, I don't believe it makes you perfect, but I believe it makes you progress. And so with practice comes progression. And that progression is usually geared in the right direction, in a healthier direction, because you're doing the practice and having that repetition. Your mind, your body, your spirit, it feels those things, and that subconscious is being programmed to be able to learn new behaviors, to be able to learn new skills, to be able to remember conversations and how you've had them and practice them. Um, the mind is a machine. And when the mind is a machine and we don't treat it like a machine, and we don't prime it and oil it and practice, right? Practice is the priming and the oiling of it. We lose it. Just like any machine, it's gonna rust. It's gonna wear and tear. It's going to just stop working. And so just like with, exercise, if you don't exercise, you're not going to stay healthy. If you're not eating right, you're not going to, you're going to either, you're just not going to be healthy. You're going to gain weight, lose weight, like whatever it is for you, right? Everybody's different. It's really a lot like that. The brain is a machine and it needs to be oiled and primed. And so as you're creating new habits and as you're learning better communication, you're going to be priming and oiling your brain more to where it's going to adapt to those new habits. Something that really helped for me with communication was listening more, even if that meant asking the person to slow down so I could take notes. I know that sounds insane, but it's not. The other thing is that I used to record people talking, and as I would record them after they would be done, I would go back and listen and then respond because it was hard for my brain with my injury to pick up on all the little things and little details and the emotions behind the verbiage, and I started paying more attention to people's body language too. um, Body language says a lot about somebody, and so those are ways that help me communicate better. Being hearing impaired, having some vision issues at times, and then having a traumatic brain injury, I had to figure out how to adapt to the world because I realized the world wasn't going to adapt to me. It's something that I had to come to grips with. Being a former teacher and caregiver, my whole life I was on the other end of the spectrum and taking care of people. And I had such passion about it, and I was just so passionate that I went above and beyond to care for other people. That's amazing, right? But what I learned was that that's not normal. Uh, that's not normal. Most people do not go above and beyond. They do the bare minimum. And it's really sad that I'm even saying that out loud, but it's something I've learned. Very few people will go above and beyond to help others in an extended way, that's going to not just make them a paycheck for helping them, but also show them that they care and that they value them as a human being, regardless of that paycheck. And that's what I realized now that I've at one point in my journey had to end my careers and had to hire caregivers and had to ask other people for help in areas that I just can't physically do. Um, you either learn that you're going to go without, or you're going to find somebody who you can communicate with who has passion and understanding and empathy. It's really crazy how many people say they have empathy and they communicate it, but when it comes down to actually helping you, they don't get it. The empathy goes out the door and they don't get it. And I always tell people, people are going to understand how much they can perceive. It's like their perception, how much they can perceive the situation. So there's people in my life, in my day-to-day life, that don't take my traumatic brain injury seriously. And how I know this is because of how they speak about other people, not just myself, other people going through similar experiences as myself and as I have. They think that we're a burden and a problem to them. And they think that we're causing issues and we can change our behaviors in ways that will allow us to not have anxiety and panic attacks and freak out. And what they don't understand is that when you're unstable, you're unstable. And when you're unstable, it's really difficult for you to control yourself, to control your emotions, to control your verbiage, like the communication that and the words that you're saying, to control, what how you're feeling and your depression and your PTSD and your panic attacks and anxiety and like whatever's going through your mind and body. It's really hard to just shut it off. And the only reason why I say that is because generally those who are doing that don't deal with their own emotions and they haven't unpacked their own trauma. They've packed it up in a cute little box like I used to do and don't talk about it. And it's usually those people that are doing that. And I know that might sound really harsh to those who do that, Or maybe you know somebody and you're like, dang, Crystal, I can't believe you just pulled that out and said that. But I live that day to day. And I've watched other people. And when you start witnessing that behavior firsthand and you start doing the work to take care of your mindset and your body and your spirit and your soul, and like you start diving in and really doing the mindset work, the inner work on yourself. You start unpacking the garbage and letting it go. You start realizing that you've been holding on to poison. You can see that in other people. You'll spot it from a mile away. And that's okay. It just shows you your growth. There's no judgment there. I love them. I love them. I pray that they find the empathy and the understanding. I also pray they never have to go through what myself and others have had to go through. I pray that they don't have to get a TBI to learn what it's like to have a TBI. Traumatic brain injuries are no joke. They're difficult at times. There's things that I'll be reading yesterday at school, communicating. Lyric started class up again, and we're reading his assignments, and I was reading with him and I was messing up some words and he would laugh at me. My 11-year-old's like laughing, but I used to get kind of upset about that, and like it used to kind of bother me. I'm not gonna lie. A little kid kind of laughing at you, right? And I didn't understand it was my TBI at the time when it first started years ago, but now I kind of laugh with him. I'm like, that was a good one. That was a good one. You have to learn to find the humor in everything. And you have to be childlike and just understand that you have an imagination and you can take yourself into a whole nother world with that imagination that doesn't involve you being broken and damaged. And I think that was what helped me the most overcome all of this, was that I get to rewrite my story, and that just because I have these physical things going on, that I do not have to settle and I am still able to do amazing things, right? Communication has helped me with that. If I wouldn't have communicated my needs over, no matter if they didn't listen or not, still communicating my needs over and over, I wouldn't be getting the right treatment and the right help that I needed. Same with my kids. Sometimes you feel like it can fall on deaf ears and it can take, years, it feels like, and it has taken us years to get properly diagnosed. What I want to tell you is don't give up. Keep communicating as best as you can. Keep expressing to yourself as much as you can. And just pray over the situation and ask God to lighten your load. Like, give it all to Him. I think so many of us carry our own burdens and carry our own stress, and that's where it comes in our lives. We're trying to carry loads of things that aren't meant for us to carry. They're mentally and physically exhausting. And so you've got to be willing to give it to your higher power, whatever your higher power is, whoever it is, you need to be willing to give it to them and allow them to take over. I always say he gets all my battles. He gets all my worries. He gets all my doubts and my fears. If I'm having a moment where I'm struggling with communication or I'm struggling to express myself, right? I ask him for help. I pause. I slow down and I ask him for help. I think we're such a world now of instantaneously, we want it right now, right now, right now. Social media has really been a big influence in that. And it's hard for people to slow down. It's hard for them to have patience. What I'm here to tell you is it's a virtue to have patience. It is such a blessing and such a reward when you can find your inner patience and your outer patience, because what happens is it changes you. First of all, you become more likely to respond instead of react. But then it changes the people around you. So those people around you see that you're more patient, you're more understanding, you have more empathy, that you are literally willing to sit down and like listen and not just speak. And I think that plays a huge role in communication is the listening part. I think that we undervalue listening to someone else. And I don't mean like listening to their direction necessarily. I mean like someone's coming to you and they need support or they just need someone to listen to them while they're going through something. We undervalue how important it is to just be a listener. And everybody wants to have an opinion. And especially in today's society, everybody wants an opinion. Everybody wants to spout off something, even if it's toxic and negative and mean. But imagine if you would silence those negative things and you wouldn't even speak on them. You wouldn't even think, you just shove them right out of your brain and just say, no, thank you. When they popped up right out of your mind, just no, thank you. Um, Imagine what the world would be like. How many people wouldn't be struggling with mental health if they just had people that were just genuinely willing to listen to them and then offer love and support. And I think about that, and it's a shame that so many people aren't willing to be a good listener. They would rather talk, talk, and talk and talk. And sometimes I think they just like hearing their voice. Other times I feel like they just don't feel like they're heard. And I feel like other times they just don't realize that they're the only one talking and that they're not sharing the floor. And so another thing about communication that I want to talk about is that listening part. I think it's a little more, and I want to tap just a little more bit more into that before I go. For years, I had certain people in my life. We were both big talkers. Like we were all, I can't say both, but we were all big talkers, certain people in my life, right? For years. And we would have these conversations and we would be like playing off of each other's words and it just flowed so good. And we were just like having these really good conversations. And I would say something and they would say something. And we were just like talking back and forth, right? That used to frustrate my husband so bad when I would do that with him. But I would do that with certain people. And I never really got the understanding. It took a long time to figure out why that bothered him so much. And so what I want to tell you is there's so many different personality types in this world. And these different personality types communicate differently. And my husband is somebody who, as he's like sharing, he wants to be heard. And once he'll pause and you'll think he's done, and then you'll respond, thinking that it's a good time to respond. And he'll get so frustrated because he'll say, I wasn't done. And I used to with other conversations and other people, they would pause and then I would respond. And then I would pause and they would respond. And it would go back and forth, right? We'd have that little breaking point. And he doesn't communicate like that. And so I had to learn how to communicate in his language, like his love language. And so now as we're having conversations, I'm a better listener because I understand what he needs from me to be that listener for him because we all need somebody who's willing to listen to us. Like we need to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. And so what I had to learn was there's little body language cues with him. And his body language tells me when his thoughts are done and pausing versus his actual voice and his verbiage. And so you have to it's a mind, body, and a spirit. Communication involves body language, it involves your voice, it involves, the way that you carry yourself and the way that you express yourself. There's just so much to it, from tone of voice to facial expressions to the way you're setting your arms and your body language, to the just so much goes into communication that we underestimate conversations with people. Years later, my kids will be like, "To remember when we talked about this?" And sometimes yeah, and sometimes no. And they remember, and they go in depth, and I'm like, "Dang, they were really paying attention to my body language. They were really paying attention to my facial expressions." And I had to tell people, even my own children, please do not use my face as a judgment on my communication or my conversations I'm having with you or somebody else, or even thinking. And they asked why. And it's because I have RBF, resting biatch face. And I will tell you, it's so hindering at times. I actually was one of those people who had to practice smiling really big, like obsessively, ridiculously big. Like I had to take my two pointer fingers and put them on the outer edges of my lips, in the corners of my lips, and I had to pull my smile up, and I had to physically make myself smile, almost kind of like a Joker smile, until my facial expressions would begin to see that people could see I was smiling. There's photos I have in elementary school. I wore these really pretty dresses and these really pretty outfits, and I felt like this princess, right? I feel like this princess. And my mom gets the photo. I'll never forget it. It was my fourth grade photos. And my mom gets the photos and she's like, "Oh my goodness." But she was cussing. "Oh my goodness." She's like, "Why did you not smile?" And she's like, "Why the hell did I even buy these photos?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And the teacher had turned the photo backwards and she didn't want anybody to see my frown. And so I didn't even see the photos until my mom showed me in our living room. And I was shocked. That was the moment I realized I had RBF. And I was so shocked. And so I was like trying to express to her and explain to her that I was smiling, that like I was so happy that day. That was one of the few days in my life after my sister had died the year before. I really was struggling with happiness and joy, just being transparent. And that was a moment I actually felt like a princess. I was happy. Like I felt really good that day. And my facial expression did not express it at all. And so she really thought that I was just angry after that. And then I realized that like all my photos and all the smiling, my fifth grade photos, my sixth grade photos, any family photos, my seventh grade, like everything, my eighth grade, all my photos, I had RBF face. And I was like, what on earth? It wasn't like I said until I was, later as an adult that I realized that I needed to like work those smiling muscles. So like I would look in the mirror and I would like smile, and it wouldn't be a smile. It'd be that RBF face, no matter how hard I tried. So I had to physically, like I said, take those fingers, and it hurt. It hurt my cheeks. It hurt my jawbone. Like it freaking hurt. I'm not gonna lie. It was not a natural expression on my face. And I just made myself smile. So that smile that you see on like my podcast photos, or like if you're on my page ever, like on any of my platforms, that's a real genuine smile today. It's not a fake smile. What I can tell you is I worked hard to achieve that beautiful smile. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it because it makes me a better communicator today. it allows people to see my true authenticity today, but I had to practice it. And so you never know what areas of communication you have to work on, is what I'm trying to tell you. It could be, a physical body language thing. Like I needed to work on my smile. I needed to also work on not crossing my arms at everything I was doing, right? Because that shows like you're kind of standoffish, and I didn't realize it. I was simply just doing it because I didn't want my arms to dangle because it hurt. And so you learn these little things about people, as you get to know them, and not everybody is going to be able to adapt to certain physical body language just because they have a limitation or a disability or inability or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's something that's limiting them from doing it. We got to give people grace. We got to learn to love people through those things and try to be better communicators on our end. That's where the empathy comes in. Um, you're you're not always going to get everybody who's receptive and open to communication either. And that's okay. I say don't pressure people. They'll come around on their own time and when it's right for them. And some people may never come around. Let's be transparent. They say, don't quote me on this, but it's like 70% of the world doesn't even want to work on themselves. They'd rather die and stay the same than be better. And so, are you part of that 30%? And that's really what you have to ask yourself when you're working on bettering yourself, whether it be communication or any other area of your life. Are you part of that 30% that shows up and wants that change? And if you are, then you definitely will find it. And you will be able to learn that better communication, and you will be willing to adapt and change and grow. And you'll do so, knowing that it's for your good and for others. And you won't make excuses. You'll literally throw those excuses out the window and you'll just go do it. And I think that's what the big kicker was for me, was once I stopped making excuses, I just became a better communicator. And and so you have that power. You hold the power to your best self. And so don't count yourself out. Don't just say, this is the way I am. So if you don't like it, too bad. I did that for years and it's toxic. Be proud of who you are, yes. But if you can improve, by my goodness, go and improve yourself. No one likes being stuck, whether we like to admit it or not. No one likes being stuck. Poor communication can leave you stuck. And so, be an encourager. Like, don't be afraid to be courageous enough to share your truth and communicate it. If you've struggled with communication, express that to other people so that they can see they're not alone, and then they can improve and work on themselves. And then you guys can do it together. And so I hope this helps you. I hope it navigates those communication waters in our day to day, in our professional life, like in all areas. And as always, like I always say, I am always here if you have questions or if you just want some extra support and guidance. Have a lovely day.